the stories of entrepreneurs and how they overcame the struggles and challenges to get where they are today. This is Believe in the Entrepreneur with Joel Sandoval, CPA.
What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Believe in the Entrepreneur, and I'm super excited because I got Legacy in the house, who's the co-owner of Real Solar. So thanks for being on the show, Legacy.
Yeah, appreciate you, Joe. Had to come over here, bro. I knew we were out here in Bakersfield, and I'm like, who are the people to connect with out here? I'm like, I gotta meet up with Joel, make sure we connect, see what we can do, man.
For sure, man. Thanks for coming by. I mean, it's crazy to see, what Real Solar has turned into, man, because, it just, it's funny how things just start with an idea, right? And then before you know it comes into life. I think you were just saying before the show, like, hey, we were thinking of, tapping into Bakersfield. Now we're in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
So, man, congrats on your success so far. But, why don't we just take it back? How did you even get into solar in the first place? And because I know that wasn't your initial thing.
Yeah, no. Solar was because of Caesar.
Yeah.
When I first met Caesar, he was doing solar.
Yeah.
And I had another company in Yuma, Arizona, and we were just always networking, and we kept running into each other, seeing each other's business cards, and we ended up doing a podcast together through a mutual friend. That's really where we linked up. But really, the solar for me wasn't until last year.
Oh, wow.
Where I fully dove into it. Like I always sent out like referrals to Caesar, or sometimes I would go in their blitzes just to go door knock and see what I can get a couple deals. But I never immersed in it until I did a lot of work with Brad.
Yeah.
And I met Michael O'Donnell. So he's a big influencer in the solar space.
Yeah.
And I would help Brad with everyone's training courses. Like I would script them out, put them into an actual course, help organize it so that way it can be on the platform. Well, when I was doing Michael O'Donnell's training, I started learning all about solar. And I'm like, man, this system right here is scalable.
Yeah.
And I knew Caesar was doing that, and we had already kind of dabbled on the idea of having a solar company and this and that, but we never had something concrete. And I called him. I'm like, bro, I need you to come to Vegas, dude. I need you to check something out. Like, yeah. I think I found something.
Yeah.
And really, that was the introduction. My approach was more on like the scalability part, the operations, the business, and Caesar's 10 years of experience in solar was like a perfect combination. And I'm already networking. I'm neutral. I'm networking with all these solar influencers. So, they already talked to me because of Lightspeed. And it was so easy for us to get in all those doors and connect with all the people that were moving and shaking in the industry.
Yeah.
And that helped us out a lot. We did it ourselves for about, I want to say 8 months or so. And then we partnered with Brad because we had that from the start. I've known Brad for the last 5 years or so. Did a lot of work with him, and we could have probably pulled the trigger at the beginning, but it was like, no, bro, let's wait.
Yeah,
let's have something concrete that's already moving with or without him. That way, when we bring up the situation, it's like, well, shit, you guys are already making it work without me. Like, all I have to do is supercharge it.
Yeah,
let's go. So, making it a no-brainer, and now it's become what it is today. You mix the experience in the solar side, you mix the experience in systems and scalability, and then Brad's influence in the solar space. I mean, it creates an impact.
For sure. Yeah, man, I think it's all about teamwork, right? It kind of reminds me of everybody is good at something, right? And if you have, once you have that collaboration, it's like, do you become unstoppable?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it seems like it happened. But tell me, obviously not everybody gets the behind the scenes of what it's like working with Brad. I got the chance to meet him. I was on his podcast, but I mean, obviously the relationship that I have with them is completely different than what you did. So how was that working with them while you were there?
Well, I feel like I aged really fast. I feel like I went in when I was 23, 24, and then I left Lightspeed when I was 25, 26. And in that time frame, I learned so much. And I started, it's funny how I ended up at Lightspeed. I had that company in Yuma, and Caesar and I went to 10X3 in Florida. And on our way to 10X, we had a layover in Dallas, and I got a phone call. All hell was breaking loose with the company. And we had already booked it for 3 weeks. So I'm like, well, like I'll try to deal with it from over here. Long story short is the company ended up getting sued. I ended up having to shut down. I lost my house. I lost everything, bro.
Oh, wow.
Everything. And I was trying to figure out how at the time to tell my wife and then my little girl that we're going to lose the house. And it was traumatic. It was like, damn, dude, like, how am I going to get through this? Like, I'm an entrepreneur. My pride is getting struck right now. I'm a failure. Like,
Yeah.
how is this happening? Like, I'm telling other people how to be successful, and I just failed. And I remember I was scrolling through Instagram, and I saw one of Brad's posts, and he was talking about if you're trying to get connected with very high-level people, you have to become a high-level person or offer value to that high-level person, like solve a problem.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to work for Brad Lea because he's connected to everyone. Like Lightspeed connects him to everyone.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a job as a salesman. I worked for 3 months as a salesman, and I was triple, quadruple the entire sales team in numbers.
Wow.
In production.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, come upstairs. Like, you shouldn't be down there. Come up here. Like, I'm going to use you for some other stuff. And started running his operations, like special operations at first. Like, I started doing his events. I would go with him to all his speaking events. So I got to meet all the speakers. And he would edify me. He's like, oh, you know, this guy's running the show. Like, I tell him what we need done, and he fucking gets it done. So when I'm meeting all these people, like, he's edifying me. It's like, oh shit, like, oh, Legacy, how you doing?
Yeah.
But I got to learn so much from them. And being at Lightspeed and an employee there, it's quality control if you're watching the content. So there's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of knowledge that I'm like, okay, well, I can look and see if they're using interactivity, if they're like the scripting is right and all that. But at the same time, I'm consuming the content. I'm listening to sales pitches, how to run businesses. Like, I'm taking advantage of all that knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, so that experience working at Lightspeed, working with Brad, seeing him close deals, how he interacted with other people, networking, it opened my eyes to so many things. Something I noticed he would always pay attention to is watches and shoes. And I'm like, huh. And I watched him make interaction with someone that complimented his watch. They exchanged numbers. The following day, he closed the Lightspeed system for $50,000 with that guy.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? Like, over an interaction with the watch. So it just started showing me what to pay attention to. Like, I'm like, what is he paying attention to? How does he know who to talk to and who to spot? Or like, what are some of the moves that he's making with the people that he has coming over here? I got to meet Jordan Belfort, Patrick David, Grant, like anybody that you can think that's like an influencer. I got to either be on a Zoom call, in person, saw the podcast, and just the knowledge through those doors that would come in. And I would always prepare questions like, all right, if I'm going to ask him one question before he leaves, just to see what he says. So I'm like, Jordan, like, what did it for you? What made all the difference between being like a professional fucking salesman and an amateur salesman?
Yeah.
And he's like, I stopped worrying about what the fuck people think. And I'm like, huh. I mean, it's basic, but I'm like, there's so much depth to that.
Right.
Like, you start realizing, like, stop thinking about it. Stop being a robot. Just be a human.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, man, that experience really opened up a lot for me. In network, in knowledge, in proximity, resources. It's tremendous.
So the business that you were running was before you were working for Brad? Is that you were already running that business? Okay.
Yeah.
And so then obviously that things didn't work out. And then you got the chance to basically work for Brad, and then you gained the knowledge through basically working for him to now build the success that you have now. But it's funny how you were getting all this, you know, people have to pay, obviously Lightspeed, you know, people subscribe to memberships. I have an academy on Lightspeed as well. So, I mean, you're gaining all this knowledge basically for free as an, you know, just because you're an employee of Brad, which is, I think is probably like one of the biggest perks of probably working there.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people weren't taking advantage of that. And I'm like, guys, it's all here. All the answers are right here.
Yeah.
And really understanding, like you mentioned, like the dynamic of the business, because I got to a ceiling where I'm an employee at the end of the day, and I'm like, Brad, dude, I need to figure out how to make more money, dog. Like this, we got to figure something out. So I ended up replacing myself and making myself a contractor. And I opened my own business that offered the services of like scripting the systems and building them out. So he just started sending me clients instead of being an employee. So now I was able to do that, keep the relationship with Brad, but now we're like strategic partners. I'm not his employee anymore.
Right.
You know, so that's when I started dabbling a little bit more into the solar. And I let him know, like, dude, you know what? I'm going to go after the solar thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, solar? I'm like, yeah. Like, trust me, this is the move.
Yeah.
And, you know, a year later when I sat down with him and I showed him what we had going on, he's like, you little motherfucker. Like, all right, dude. Like, yeah, let me in on this. Like, how do we make a move? Like, what problems are in the industry that we can solve? And I'm like, well, damn, dude, there's a lot. There's a lot of unethical people. There's a lot of people that are taking advantage of clients. So, like, if we can address to solve that problem, we can fix a lot of the industry.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of companies that are doing it right, you know, like a lot of great models to follow. And we just want to make sure we're abiding by that. That's really what gives us the size and the trust. Like everybody's trusting, like, well, all else, like maybe I can find something faster or something better or something a better price or whatever. But like, I know this is consistent.
Yeah.
I know that they're going to deliver on this and this and this. So plus, we like to look beyond our vehicle. You know, solar is a vehicle. Solar is how you're paying your bills, you're funding whatever it is that you want. Beyond that vehicle is also something we're looking to build with everyone else. Like, do you guys want to invest in real estate? Do you guys want to invest in this? Because now there's power in numbers. If we have 600 representatives and we're looking at getting an apartment complex, there's 600. Like, divide whatever that number is divided by 600.
Wow.
You know, all of a sudden we can get it.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a piece and we're building together. You know, so I think that level is really what's going to separate us from any other solar company is that we're looking beyond just like, okay, let's build this big company and make as much money as we can. And then like, if it fails, whatever, like we're looking beyond that. Like, we want to make sure that if solar fails, our team is still taken care of. We've thought of multiple ways and avenues that are doors out of that industry where they'll still be good. They'll still have the support.
Right.
They'll still have the teams. That's what'll give us longevity over everything else.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, the skills that the people are gaining, right, and working in solar, especially sales, it's like you could take those sales skills anywhere. Like if something were to happen to the solar industry, which I don't think it will, especially with, you know, they just passed for you know, the Inflation Reduction Act, which basically gave a tax credit for the next 10 years. I mean, that's a huge incentive for people to invest in solar. So I think solar is here to stay. I mean, look at the Super Bowl commercials, all the cars, everyone's saying we're going electric. I mean, you got to power those electric cars with electricity, which means you need solar. Otherwise, you're going to have this huge electric bill. So I think that's where the future is going. So I think, you know, solar is here to stay. And I think that you guys are capitalizing on that. And the worst thing, like case scenario, if things do fail, like you said, the collaboration, the relationships that you're building, I mean, that's irreplaceable.
Yeah. And it's huge. And it lets you really build what it is, what influence is supposed to mean. You know, influence isn't supposed to be a bunch of followers. Influence is like you can fill a room with 1,000 people that will help and support whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Right.
You know, if that they see that you're on a mission, they know that you would do the same for them.
Right.
You know, and now you have something powerful. It doesn't matter what you're pushing. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, there's strength in those numbers.
Right.
You know, that number can easily multiply into 6,000 if each individual person is telling X amount of people.
Right.
You know, so yeah, looking at that and then bridging into the rest of the stuff. So something I want to make sure that the team sees is a lot of people have known me for a while that are on our team. They're OGs. They've been around for a while. I've known Caesar for a while, so I got to meet some of the guys. And something I would always talk to them about, even before a lot of this happened, I would tell them about being an influencer and being on stage with people like Brad, and then doing my music and creating all these different avenues. And now that they're all coming to fruition and they're seeing they're actually taking place, it gives another light of hope. Like, holy shit, like I knew this guy. I went to school with this guy. Like, I remember when he was a little desmadroso, you know, like, and now look, like, things are so different. Like, you can change your whole life.
Oh yeah.
And it comes with having that purpose and drive with consistency and looking at what it is that you're trying to accomplish, finding the resources and people that are going to help you accomplish that.
Right.
You know, because now with all of the team, sure, you know, there's a lot to do in the business. Even coming out to the blitzes and going and closing some deals with the guys, staying involved. But now I've been doing a lot of my music. And because of the relationships that were built while doing events with Brad, while doing all of this, I also took advantage of networking with all those people, networking with cinematographers, networking with the people that do the events, concerts, all of that. And now those same people are collaborating with me over here. You know, sound engineers, what are they called? Film scorers, you know, all the sound effects and all that. And it taps us into a new industry.
Right.
And fulfilling that while also carrying this is also where everything's leading. When it comes to influence and social media, like, a lot of it is getting very repetitive. A lot of it is like consistent. Now it's like kind of starting to gear towards creativity.
Right.
Like, how creative can you get? And if we can be the funnel for that, and we have thousands of representatives that we can help build their personal brands, like, all that's going to do is help all of us.
Right.
You know, if one of them blows up and they're a part of this team, we're all winning.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so we just upped all of our chances. If we're focusing on all of the people, all of the teams, how can we help build each other?
Right.
And become that bridge from where they're at to where they're trying to be or what they're trying to accomplish.
100%. Yeah, I think it all comes down to relationships, like you're saying. Like, who would have known, like, the relationships that you were building when you were helping Brad, you know, at the events, that now you're using those same relationships to build, you know, also your music career that you got going on as well. And it's like, you would have never known, right? But it's like having those contacts and those connections are so important, because it's like, you never know when you're going to need that person to come through on whatever project you got going on in life or whatever. And so I think that's super important. And then, you know, it's pretty cool to see you tap into that, regardless of, you know, where your business or life takes you.
Yeah, it's huge. And a lot of people say, like, you can't do multiple things. You got to focus on one, and I agree with that to a certain extent. But everyone does multiple things. Everybody has kids. Everybody has soccer games. Everybody has parents and family parties. And so what do you mean do one thing?
Right.
You know, so if you replace some of that wasteful time,
right,
you know, with going out and drinking and this, and you replace it with things that you dream or things that you're hoping to accomplish, like, you can do it all.
Yeah.
You know, you just prioritize. Everything has its phases.
Right.
There'll come a time where my music is going to be 90% now.
Right.
And now 10% is this and 5% whatever.
Right.
You know, you're diversifying, but you're prioritizing.
Right.
You know, and right now, looking at what we have in front of us, like, priority is getting this solar business up.
Right.
And making sure that that's established. We're recruiting. We're changing the world. There was a point in time where cell phones had like a 5 to 10% market penetration. And it was weird when people had it. Only rich people had it, you know? And then it got to a point where it was 20 to 30%, and it became a little more common, but it was still kind of like, no, higher class. After it passed the 50% mark, it spread like wildfire. Like, once it was at like 52, it went from like 52 to like 90 something percent within a span of like a year and a half.
Right.
You know, so there was like a boom with all of that. Right now in solar, we're at a 5% market penetration.
Really? Wow.
So you're looking at this and it's like, dude, well, it's a gold rush. And if we can stick to it till 50%, 52%, and then it just takes off on its own.
Wow.
And we're in the position to take advantage of that. It just makes the most sense. And studying it from like a really business standpoint, studying like Rockefellers and JP Morgans and like all of these big gurus and how they did it, they looked at a big problem that they were solving. and electricity is not going anywhere.
Right.
You know, so it just makes the most sense. It's like, well, like I know, and especially with the extension, it's like, I know this isn't going anywhere. I know we're killing it with it. We've got a lot of great players. There's just so much here to move up with and grow.
Yep.
And partnering with people like yourself, because that's another thing is limiting to your industry. Like, dude, diversify.
Right.
Like, how do I help you? How can I help you recruit people or do an event and edify you, or even offer services with my guys? Like, I know all their clients need tax services. I know they all do too.
Right.
You know, so there's so many ways for us to collaborate. And I feel like that's missed a lot too. You
Right.
know, in when you're networking, when you're building, and it's one of the most crucial parts.
100%. And I think one thing that you said that, you know, like if you look at the Rockefellers and all these other people that, you know, created wealth for themselves, and even if we just don't even take it that far back and we just look at 2008, for example, because that's, you know, I was alive during 2008, not necessarily when the Rockefellers were building their wealth. It's like when I saw the people that became wealthy during that time was the people that were ready to capitalize when the market crashed. And it's like all these real estate investors were buying, you know, properties for pennies on the dollar, and then like 5 years later, doubling their money. And the ones that had the most cash and bought all these properties were the ones that basically were controlling the economy now, because it was like monopoly.
Yeah.
They were, you know, they owned all these properties, and I think that now is that same opportunity with solar. Like you're saying, 5% capitalization. I mean, there's 95% left. So it's just like the amount of opportunity. I didn't realize that there was so much opportunity left in solar. It's still like in the beginning phases.
It is, man. It's very new. It's
Wow.
very new. So looking at how big it's getting, it starts to put things into perspective. It's like, man, this is going to go for the run. Like everything points that direction. It is going to shoot for full market penetration. You know, now we got the backing from the government. We've got the backing from all the vehicles. We've got, like, it's all pointing that direction. It's not hard to see it. So right now, getting that positioning, and we're trying to network with everyone we can, because there's a way for everyone to get positioned. There's a way for you to be a realtor and get positioned with solar. Like regardless, like you have that in your back pocket.
That's
you
right.
know, the taxes, same thing with solar. Pest control, solar. Alarms, solar. It all goes together. It complements each other.
Right.
One of the biggest things that we've done is roofing. You know, because sometimes they have jacked up roofs, and we can bundle that all together. Now they get a new roof and they save on their bill. You know, so there's so many different things now that are helping push the needle with that. And again, like watching people change their lives. That's the most fulfilling part of this all, because what the opportunity is. You have someone new that was working as a server at this restaurant, comes and closes one deal, and with one deal replaces what they were doing all month.
Right.
And they're like, what?
Right.
You know? So now you see that same guy 1 year later, now he's got a 6-figure income, and he's like, dude, like it's so different now. And I'm working like a fraction of what I was working before.
Right.
You know, and for those that it clicks where it's like, no, I'm going to make sure I work the same amount. Like those are the ones that are the 7 figures, shooting for 8 figures, building teams and maximizing this opportunity.
100%.
I think Warren Buffett mentioned that solar and electricity is going to be the largest transfer of wealth in history.
Wow.
You know, so to again see these elements, it's like, fuck, like this is the perfect. I'm. It's almost like I have the cure to cancer. I want to tell everybody, like, guys, like it's here.
Yeah. Now, did you see that, like when you were putting the course together for Michael Donnell, and that's kind of what clicked for you, that there was this opportunity available, or what made you? Because you were like, that's when you hit up Caesar, and you're like, hey. So what was that moment for you, where like, you know, solar is the new thing, the next opportunity?
Well, it was a combination of things, because it never left my mind how much money I had made for referring someone to Caesar. And I'm like, what the? Like, if this is what you're giving me for a referral, how much did you make?
Right.
You know, like, what the? Like, tell me more about this. So that always stuck with me, but I couldn't find a system in it. Like, I'm very systematic. And if I don't understand the business enough to build a system for it to where I can scale it, I'm like, I don't know. So when I went through the Michael O'Donnell training, I was already going through like a little hiccup where I was feeling that ceiling at Lightspeed. I was feeling like I was stuck. I wasn't moving as fast as I wanted to move. And I had went to go watch Kobe Bryant speak in Vegas with Patrick Bet-David. And he was mentioning all of these things that he wanted to do and accomplish. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's Kobe Bryant. He's going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and rest in peace, he passed away.
Right.
And it just made me realize, like, man, like I believed and I knew he was going to do that. But then life got in the way.
Right.
And I'm like, right now, am I going after what I'm wanting? And the answer was no.
Right.
So I'm going through all this, like, what the heck do I do? And I called, when I got the Michael O'Donnell thing, I went through all that course and I understood how to sell solar. And I'm like, dude, I can go sell this. Like, I get it. I understand it. Like, I know I can go get clients.
Right.
And I called Caesar and I asked him, I'm like, bro, can I really make $100,000 a month selling solar? Like, legitimately, bro. Like, as my brother, like, don't hype nothing up. Like, can I? And
Right.
he's like, yes, bro. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, okay, bro, I'm in.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm in. I'm a fucking sell solar. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, what? All right, dude. Like, but you got to come check this out. You know, and that's when all that happened. But it was really like understanding the system, understanding that, like, with that, like, I'm like Michael O'Donnell's biggest testimonial because after that course, my first month in solar, I made over $100,000.
Wow.
You know, and all I did was follow his course.
Really?
I followed everything that was in there, what he said, how to solve the objections, literally just followed it step by step. I'm like, okay, if he's right, this is going to be the testimonial because I'm going to follow it to the T.
Wow.
And it worked.
Wow.
It worked. So now it's like, well, this is what we're going to offer to all our reps.
Yeah.
You know, and anybody that maximizes this is going to be able to take advantage of it. You
Yeah.
know? And that helped us a lot. That helped us launch our business and get offices and start this all up to what it is now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what, you know, you dropped a lot of nuggets there, but one that stood out for me was the fact that, you know, Caesar gave you a big referral check, right? And you're like, what the hell is this? Like, this is a huge amount for a referral. It's like, how much did you make, right? And so it goes to show also like the quality that, you know, of Caesar, because, you know, I'm not sure if you guys already had an agreement in place or not, but it's like, if you take care of your referral partners, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to give them that much, or maybe, you know, give them less of a referral fee or whatever. It's like, if he wouldn't have given you that amount, you probably wouldn't have been like, hey, how can I get in the game?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If he would have given you something small. And that allowed, you know, probably you gave him probably more referrals after that until you got in it yourself. And now you guys are co-owners together. So it goes to show that, you know, like you said, with the networking events and collaborations, like, how can I help you? Right. Having that mentality, because that's when you get that reciprocation back, as opposed to like, how can I, instead of doing the opposite, right? Instead of like you going on, how can I help you, and you win, it's always like, hey, you know, I want to win from this event.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can capture. I want to make sure I get, but that's not the right mindset.
Right. No. Yeah. And people won't gravitate towards that.
Right.
You know, you want to become a magnetic person.
Right.
So where you don't have to try to be the loudest in the room.
Right.
You're just heavily interested in everybody else.
Right.
And curious about what they're trying to accomplish and where they're going.
Right.
You know, and that becomes a superpower, because then you learn so much about everyone. Like, you know, if I start asking you questions like, what's your dream? What are you trying to do? And then I find out you want to race trucks. And I'm like, dude, well, I know somebody. You know, I can introduce you. Like, all of a sudden, there's so many things that click.
Right.
But you would never know if you didn't dig into that.
Right.
You know, and people gravitate towards that, because now, even if we had one conversation and that was your dream, and I just mentioned that, you're going to be like, dude, I'm going to talk to Legacy. Like, he said he knew somebody there. You know, all of a sudden, now you want to talk to me.
Right.
You know, and like, dude, how do I get that? Like, and now we're building something together. I'm trying to find, when I'm meeting someone, the first thing I try to do is like, how do I bring value to this person? You know, how can I know enough to where I'm like, I found a blank I can fill. You know, I found a bridge I can help them cross.
Right.
And that helps a lot. And I feel like the partnership with Caesar and I, it's always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't ever have to worry about what he's doing or question anything. And even like in the industry, when we started working together, I didn't even ask him how much I got paid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. You know, and I'm in the industry now, and everybody's like, dude, well, what's my dollar amount and how I'm going to do it? And I'm just like, that's so funny, man. Like, I didn't even ask that. I was just like, there's a lot of money here. I'm going to go run it, you know? But it's because that trust was built.
Right.
You know, we had already worked through a bunch of things. And out of all my friends and everybody in Yuma, he was the only one that came to visit me when I was living in my freaking car in Vegas.
Wow.
You know, because when I went to go work for Brad, I didn't have anything. I had every excuse not to go. I'm like, I don't have no money. I don't have a place to live. I don't have nothing. You know, so I was sleeping in my car and I was so embarrassed because he came on a weekend to see me and I was at Lightspeed. And I'm like, yeah, dude, come through. I'll give you a tour, this and that. So he's like, hey, I'm here. And I had to park like all the way in the corner, you know? And well, it was a Saturday, so the parking lot's open. So I go down and I look and I see he parked next to me. And I'm like, no. I'm like, all this parking, bro. I thought you were going to park here. And I'm like, damn, he saw all my clothes and stuff, you know? And I was so embarrassed, but he's like, dude, like, don't be, bro. He's like, I'm fucking inspired, dude. Like, I respect you that much more that you're freaking here and no one would even know. Like, like you're running it and like you're doing whatever it takes.
Right.
You know, so really that after that, it became a lot more of a connection. We started collaborating on more things. We started doing events together. He's been in damn near all my music videos. Like, it's been a ride. And we have, outside of solar, we have so many different things we're doing with people that we're collaborating with, because we understand we don't have to be the experts in everything. We have to know the experts.
Right.
You know, and if there's a problem that they can solve and we know someone that has that problem, boom, we just connect the dots.
Right.
You know, become a master at connecting the dots.
Yeah, 100%. Are you an entrepreneur, independent contractor, or business owner making at least $250,000 in revenue? If so, you might have a tax problem. When we sit down with business owners, we find that on average, they've been overpaying in taxes by $25,967 a year. How does this happen? Well, unfortunately, a lot of tax pros are only helping their clients with tax preparation, not with tax planning. See, when we tax plan, everything is taken into consideration. We review your deductions, your entity selection, your retirement, your insurance. We take a look at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and implement different niche-specific strategies to help you reduce your tax liability by tens of thousands of dollars. And when you don't tax plan, money is left on the table. So if you're tired of writing a big check to the IRS every year, then I highly recommend that you schedule a free 15-minute call with my team by going to help.sandovaltax.com. Are you just starting out in business? Would you like the services of a CPA, but maybe you can't afford one just yet? If so, then I recommend checking out my online course titled The Tax Savers Academy. Inside of my course, we'll provide you with a list of ordinary business deductions, and I'll walk you through everything that you can deduct as a new business owner. We'll go over different entities to help you understand how they work and how they're taxed. By the end, you'll know exactly which is the best entity to form for your business. Also, in order for you to succeed, you'll need to know your numbers. Inside of my course, I'll teach you how to properly enter your income and your expenses using QuickBooks Online. This will help you keep tabs on all of your invoices, your bill payments, and provide you with the reporting that you need, like a profit and loss, so that you can keep track of your numbers. If you want to make sure your business is fundamentally strong, then enroll in my online course at taxsaversacademy.com. Yeah, I think it goes to show, like, it's not what you know, but who you know.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, you don't there's no way that you can know everything, right? There's absolutely no way, but you find the people to solve that problem.
Right.
And because there's always an expert in whatever you're trying to tap into, and it's just a matter of, again, relationships and figure out how you can collaborate. And I think it's you got to be, like you said, even social media is that way now. You got to be creative, right? Yeah. So how can you be creative in that relationship or in that collaboration?
Right.
Like you were saying, you were not even looking at the numbers. It wasn't even about like, okay, what am I getting paid from these solar deals, just because you had that trust already. Mm-hmm. And I think that relationship was important. And I think like the best deals are the ones that are built off trust.
Yeah.
Because it's like you end up multiplying, you're doing multiple deals, you're doing bigger numbers. And it's like, dude, you're focusing on the little numbers, where really you should be focusing on the relationship, and then you get more compensation if you just focus on the right things.
Yeah, 100%. And like you mentioned, it's like, apart from building the trust, you're building some kind of value. You know, like if I came in as working with Caesar and selling solar, because this was before we opened up our own thing. Like I started with him. My goal is not to make it harder for him or to be a diva,
right,
or to try to figure out all these different, explain this. Like, I'm going to follow the process. I'm going to make it easy and become the obvious choice for anything, you know? And when you become the obvious choice in something, you're the obvious choice.
Right.
There's no question. No one can argue with that.
Right.
You know, so, and building the partnership, it was easy. It was like, dude, well, we have this opportunity. This is what we have. Like, let's do our own thing. Like, all right, bro, let's do it. You know, because we had already built that rapport. We knew what we were capable of. We had done events together. We had done different moves together. And now having this business, it was always like, dude, like, why didn't we do this sooner?
Right.
Like, but it all in its timing, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
It all worked out perfect.
100%. Now, you guys did this, you know, you and Caesar did this for, I think you said 8 months before you brought Brad in. I mean, you guys were obviously already having some success because, I mean, you guys wouldn't be doing it. But obviously, Brad hit you up and he's like, hey, I want to be a part of it. But tell me, like, what were the kind of the things that, because there's obviously some, like, okay, now you got to give up some ownership, right? You're going to give up some bread, but at the same time, you could expand this into something bigger. Right. So what are kind of the thoughts that you had, and why'd you say, you know, let's do it, Brad?
Well, it was always a no-brainer to get Brad involved. It was just timing, like when, because I knew what that was going to result in, and he has a lot of attention. So I looked at what we had currently, and then what would happen if this all came in, and I'm like, no, we would fold, we would break, like we would ruin so many relationships because we would get them on, then they would all have a bad experience. You know, so getting to the point where we reached not our peak, but the point where we were going to start gradually growing. You know, because we took a spike. When we first started, we recruited and built a solid team. And with Michael O'Donnell's installer, we became like their number one team like month one. You know, so we were building that out, and then it got to that point. And we're talking, and I told Caesar, I'm like, bro, we have to change up our game, bro. We have to start recruiting dealers instead of recruiting reps. He said, well, yeah, bro, but we're a dealer. How are we going to recruit another dealer? You know, and that's when it was like, well, Brad, like, how would you feel if Brad was our business partner? And he's like, well, shit. Like, yeah, dude, let's do it. Like, how would that work? I'm like, well, let me talk to him. I'm like, but this is what we're going to offer. Like, we already have a business. We'll just give him equity. And for him saying yes, he's already going to make money.
Right.
Like, literally, he does nothing and he'll make money. He's like, but that's our buy-in, you know, because now we just give him a list of things that we can collaborate and how we fill each other's voids.
Right.
Give him enough knowledge in solar for his strength, and then we'll cover the grounds. And yeah, I mean, once I talked to Brad, presented it exactly like that. I'm like, dude, for you to say yes, you're going to make 6 figures. So just say yes. And he's like, well, shit, like, I'll take 6 figures. What up, you know? And once we broke it down, he's like, well, shit, yeah, dude, I can get a lot of people. He's like, but I just want to make sure that we're legit, that we're like, I don't want to put my name behind this and this. And so we went through all of that. He's like, dude, this looks legit. Okay. He's like, I'll start promoting. And once he started promoting, it literally was exactly what we expected. It was like, damn, dude, like, we just started getting dealer. So now it wasn't like one person at a time. It was like a team of 30, a team of 15, a team of 20, and they're all bringing their volume, and we're all putting it with, you know, a specific installer. So like, now we're getting better costs and we can offer better pay. So it just kept growing and growing. And right now we've reached a point where we've created and like set out all the systems to make it simple. You know, everything's on an app, everything's tracked, everybody's got positions. Like, the scalability now, we can scale to the moon.
Wow.
And it's exciting. It's exciting to see it and looking at it from this dynamic, because now, like, the conversations with Caesar and I, they're always like, how do we put more money in Brad's pocket? you know, because in return we put more money in our pocket.
Right.
So our focus is Brad. How do we make it make more sense for him? How do we incentivize him more? How do we make him want to say this on stage or create our own event and get a bunch of people? And again, a lot of people lose sight. They are like, what can I get from Brad?
Right.
What can he invest in? He's got money. He could spend this. Like, it's like, nah, dude, you want to put money in his pocket.
Right.
Like you want to take advantage of all the resources and Rolodex and support. Not that. You want to make money with him. You want to make him money.
Right.
Because in return, it'll make you money.
100%. Yeah, it goes back to like, what can I do for you, right? Instead of like, hey, what can he do for me? And I think that's when you get rewarded. It's like I tell my wife all the time, because I got a salesperson on my team here at my firm, and I'm always like, I want him to make money, because I mean, if he makes money, then obviously I get a portion as well. Yeah. And it's about that collaboration, about like, hey, I want him to win, because if he wins, we all win. And it's the same with Brad, you know, like how can we make sure that this is attractive to him? But that being said, you know, at the same time, like obviously, let me take it back to like when you're going to bring him as an equity owner. You said, okay, you're going to make 6 figures from this, right? But was there like negotiation on what percentage of the equity he's going to have, or how did that boil down?
Well, it was just like factoring what the projections were going to be. You know, again, Brad charges $50,000 to speak. So just to have Brad at our event would have cost us $50,000. So now we have him at our launch parties, we have him at our awards, we have him on Zoom calls. So like that by itself, determining what that cost would be. And it's like, well, if we give him this percentage, that would offset that cost. But now we get the Lightspeed facilities, we get his Rolodex, we get this. And the goal is to 3x our volume. And what ended up happening is we betted on that. We're like, as long as we can 3x our volume, like we're going to make our money back. This is a good deal for Brad, good deal for us. And we ended up 10xing.
Wow.
You know, so that risk ended up way paying off.
Wow.
You know, because you're subtracting, but what you're really doing is adding volume. You know, so we had more percentage with 30 deals a month. And now we have less percentage with hundreds of deals a month. So it's well worth it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it makes sense. It's like, you know, sometimes you want to keep the whole pie, but it's like if you give more, you're going to multiply. And it's just, you didn't even know that. Yeah,
and there's doors that Brad can open that we couldn't.
Right.
You know, but now people are starting to recognize like, oh, that's Brad's partner. You know, and in his world, he's very influential. So that means in his world, so are we. And our job is to create more influence.
Right.
And become something that also Brad can attach to. Because now, like for myself and Brad, Caesar and I have been talking about the music industry, because I've been approached by 3 different record labels. And there's about 26 different songs, 3 different genres, but it's the same game. It's networking, knowing who's pulling the triggers. Like you don't want to go after the people like Drake or Jay-Z. You want to go after the people that made them. You want to go after their marketers, their producers, their this. So like now we've got all that Rolodex. And like behind the scenes, people don't even know what's going on. Like you're working on all this stuff and they're competing with this. Right. You know, and once this is done and presented, like you can't keep up with it. It's like it was already built. We're not barely starting and presenting it. It's done and presenting it. Right. You know, so the goal right now is also now to build a massive Hispanic influence, like Mexican American and like in the Hispanic world, because that's going to bring more value to Brad as well. You know, so like everything I'm doing, I'm thinking like, how can I bring more value to Caesar? How can I make him feel like, damn, my fucking partner, like I'm so glad this partnership happened. Right. And, you know, and looking at all my partnerships, all my relationships, like how do I create that effect with everyone that I meet, with everyone that I'm interacting with, because that's the energy I want to project. Right. I want to be able to walk into a room and I've done great to everyone. And as soon as I walk into the room, whoever doesn't know me is going to know like, what the, like everyone reacted to his entrance. Right. You know, and it's because you're just looking out for everyone. You're treating it like it's your kingdom, because at the end of the day, your life, everyone's in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's your life. That's the only thing you know for sure. Whatever's in your head, for whatever you know, everyone else is made up. You know, so I always treat it like, okay, if I'm in this environment, now this is my environment in my life.
Right.
So I want to have some positive influence here.
Right.
I want to leave something that's going to resonate in a positive way.
Right.
You know, and really protect that with everything that you do in your family, your relationships, significant others, your kids, like dedicating the time to all of those things and giving it the same importance.
Right.
You know, because that's something else that's so hard in the entrepreneur world, because they're like, hustle, 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 like no days off. Like you have to set up meetings and stuff with your kids, with your significant other, just as with your parents.
Right.
You know, just the same way you're setting anything else up.
Right.
You know, and I have a mastermind, and the only way you can get in is by solving the Rubik's Cube.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't buy your way in.
Wow.
You can't, nothing. Like you have to show me that you can solve it, because that's the only way I'll know that you're going to take what I say serious, because you have to do everything simultaneously in your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to solve a Rubik's Cube one side at a time, you'll never solve it. The only way to solve the Rubik's Cube is taking account every single side simultaneously.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
So now you're like, you have that, and you take the information, your business, your relationship, your money, your love, emotion, health, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to solve it simultaneously. You can't, well, I got to get my money right. Fuck my relationships, my health, my everything else. Like, no, dude. Like you have a heart attack. Like, you know, you're done.
Right.
You know, so I love that, and it resonates, and it allows, it's like a Navy Team SEAL 6 type thing, because it's like they're all wanting to level up and high pressure. So I put a lot of pressure on them. I make sure I coach them through. We have a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the Rubik's Cube thing because it's a big filter. It's like, bro, you can't even solve a toy. And you're going to tell me you're going to solve your life. You know, it's outweigh that. Like the information I'm going to tell you is going to have that effect. You have to put it all into play at the same time. You can't like, oh, one day I'm going to do this, then the next day I'll do that. And like, no, take the whole list and shift your life. Do it all like this.
Right.
You know, and it makes a big difference. And it's helped me a lot. Like once I solved a Rubik's Cube, I started finding correlations, because my communication is giving examples, using like baseball as examples, using shows, using this. So that just gave me another form of communication where it's like, it helps me put a picture on like the actions and the things that are important in life. It lets me put a sequence and amounts, you know, so it helps a lot. And having those core groups with you, I believe, and I know that to master something is teach it to someone else.
Right.
You know, so even when I'm learning something new, or I just found something out, now I share it with them and they're asking me questions.
Right.
So like by default, I start mastering the information.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm helping them, you know, and that's really what's fulfilling. And it's what I want to be known for. Like I want to be known as the guy that cared about helping you fulfill your dreams. That you met this person, and this person, you shared your dreams, and somehow he would connect you with people, and he brought you those resources or gave you something that was a door into that. And if I can help people fulfill that or actually accomplish their dreams, it'll fulfill a lot of myself, like as a kid, because I was always shut down on my dreams. I was always like, whoever I would say in my surroundings, they would shut it out. Like, nah, dude, come back to the real world. So it became a big thing for me. And once I broke through that shell, I became obsessed with wanting to help other people break that shell. And how free I feel now compared to where I felt caged. I felt trapped. I felt like in a routine. I couldn't get out of it.
Right.
Like now it's like I'm unleashed. I'm uncaged. I want everyone to experience this.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that story. Now, one thing I think that is probably like for the listeners, you know, because a lot of times like, you have the mentality of like, how can I provide more value, right, to your partners, whether it's Brad, whether it's Caesar, or even if you're in a room full of people and you want to be known kind of as a guy that, you know, has an impact on their life, right, which is, I think, a great quality to have. But also now if we put ourselves in the other side of their shoes, and let's say maybe they have their guard up and then like, hey, this guy, I don't know if this guy's legit. I don't know if this guy is like, he seems a little bit too nice. So how do you break, or maybe like even for example, you had that partnership with Brad, but maybe you're like, oh man, I don't know how I can even build that relationship when they probably are like, oh, I don't know if this is what he's offering me is even real. So how do you bridge through that gap of like, building trust and seeing that you're actually legitimately trying to help people as opposed to, you're just trying to do something for yourself?
Yeah, well, I think it has to do with like trust and then credibility as well. And for example, like something that I felt at the beginning when I started with Caesar, he already had a 30-man team. So I'm like, how am I going to come in and tell these guys how to sell solar? They're going to be like, this guy, so before I said a single word to them, I went and made that month. So where now there was no question. When I said something, I was backing these results. It was like, they're not going to wonder if I can. I just outsold the entire team and I'm brand new. So now it's like the conversation you're having has some weight, and a lot of times I think that happens in conversations or when you're trying to help someone else, you're being very theoretical. If you're following the process correctly, you're genuinely wanting to know about that person. And if they bring something up that you genuinely do have, like there's credibility there. You can make the phone call and be like, dude, check this out. I met this guy that wants to do this. How crazy. And it's like, oh, this guy's legit, because you're right, man. It happens a lot. Even myself, like someone will come in, yeah, dude, I freaking know Mayweather and this and that. But he took a picture with him once, like fucking 2007, It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
So it's establishing that credibility and not shooting so like dramatic, being very tangible, tactical, measurable, with the things that you're talking about. If you're talking about doing an event, and then you're like, yeah, and I have sponsors, I have about 50 people that would buy a ticket, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, okay, there's tangibles there.
Right.
Like he's not just saying it would be cool if we had like 10,000 people. Like you're bringing more questions than actually putting something together. Because now I'm thinking, how are you going to get 10,000 people?
Right.
Who's going to help you do that?
Right.
How are you going to sell tickets?
Right.
So if you already have that figured out,
right,
and people will know, like if I can see it and you're explaining to me and it's really clear, it's simple, I can see how it'll work. It's like, okay, this guy's legit.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. It goes back to, like you said, that credibility, right? And the fact that you've already done your research, that you've done your homework. Because now it's like if I get approached by someone, usually like for example, if someone reached out to me, I'll go check out like their profile, like okay, who's he associated with, right? Like how legitimate is he? And if it looks like some guy that just starting out, obviously he's not gonna have as much credibility as someone who's like, oh man, look at everything that he's done, right? I'm going to pay more attention, obviously. And now it's like once you have someone's attention, at that point now it's about just, collaborating, really making sure that it makes sense.
Yeah, and following through, actually making the connections, because I've met tons of people that have a great first impression, that offer the moon and the stars, and it sounds legit, but then it comes to the follow through and it's like,
That's
like
right.
The next week is like, bro, I got this newest freaking amazing thing, and I'm like, bro, like the last 3 were the most amazing. Like, what makes this one different?
Yeah, 100%, man. I think and it goes back to really just doing your due diligence. I think because there are obviously people that are probably don't have the right intention or probably shouldn't be credible and stuff, and that's probably why people have their guard up in the first place, is because of those bad experiences. But I think that the more reputation you have, right, the better, like you start falling through, and it's like you just start getting like referrals now. You start getting, because people talk, and so you want your reputation, we were talking about before the show, is everything. So you want to make sure that you're you can back yourself up, that the other people that are speaking about you also can back you up, and it goes back to making sure that you fulfill on your responsibilities and your promises.
Yeah, and it's simple. I mean, it's difficult, but it's simple. And I always say you can lie to the world, but you can't lie to yourself. The moment that you start lying to yourself, you lose control. You lose full control. Like
100%.
if you start telling people, yeah, I went to the gym this morning, and you're like, yeah, I did go to the gym, and you didn't, like, you're literally self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
You know, and you think about all the little things you might like, no, I didn't do that. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You know, just stop, be true to it. Like what you're offering, the things that you're saying you can do, like do them. Make sure that you're saying something you can follow through with, or shoot even shorter, so that way you can exceed expectations.
Right.
You know, but that consistency, that consistent win, that consistent keeping your word, that consistent following through is the basis of building confidence.
Right.
You know, if someone doesn't have confidence, it's because they never follow through with what they say.
Yeah.
They don't keep their word to themselves. Yeah, I'm going to stop this, and they don't. I'm going to do this, and they don't. It's like your mind is telling you, like, bro, no, you're not. You know, like, I'm going to fulfill my dreams. No, you're not.
Right.
You know, it's hard. It's hard to have that confidence when that mentality is so instilled. And you can't expect to build long-lasting, credible relationships like that. You know, because they'll see that. They know their worth.
Right.
Those people know what they're worth. And it's like, if they're not getting value and they're offering the value and getting back, they're going to drop that.
Right.
Like, it's like, man, this ATM machine, I keep having a deposit and I never can withdraw anything.
Right.
You know, so if you're looking at relationships that way and seeing like the relationships that you're building, like, am I depositing to this person, or do I continuously withdraw?
Right.
Withdraw energy, withdraw ideas, withdraw resources. Like, get in the mode of depositing into everyone, because now you have this ATM that's worth 5,000 and this ATM that's worth 10,000. Like, all that is worth money, man. Social currency is worth a lot more than tangible money. You know, when you lose it all, those people will have your back. They'll be able to get you out of the hole.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. I love that analogy of the ATM, man. It's like people always want to withdraw, but what about depositing, man? And then, because like you said, that now that ATM or that relationship is worth value. And so, and it's like, if you lose it all, you still have those ATMs, you still have those relationships. I love that analogy, man. That's awesome. Now let's talk about, like, you know, for someone, you know, that wants to get into solar, like, or even just like, you know, what you have to offer to the table, you know, when you were like, cause you know, Caesar was already in the industry for a while. So what made him want to partner up with you as like, hey, this is, you know, I got operations. So like, what was the value proposition to him?
Well, it was the network would be the first basis. Like, the ability to get into very high networks, like how to maneuver through them, because you learn the gatekeeper process, how to get around different areas and get to the big dog, you know. And now having Brad gave me that door where it became easier to walk into those doors. So then I started building that up. Like, I got Dan Fleischman's number. I started building up that database. And now it's like, well, I have these all. Like, I'm not going to waste any of these bullets until they're like perfect to use, you know. So now we use the Brad bullet, but we really haven't. We haven't pushed it to the max. But it's that controlled strategy and looking 20 to 40 years in the future, because people stop at like 5, and realistically they plan like 3 months, 12 months. No one really goes all the way through.
Right.
And that was my superpower with Brad. That was why he started trusting me with businesses. Is like, motherfucker, you think of all that. Like, you're not looking at here. Like, you're talking to them about their tenure and when they go into different markets and when they hit different regions, how they're going to get into different phases. Like, where'd you learn that?
Right.
I'm like, well, here. Like, I learned that here.
Yeah,
like, I learned it through Lightspeed and through the books that you have on your shelves.
Right.
It's like, holy shit. Okay, well,
yeah,
like, let's start working on that. And that really bridged into the rest of the relationships, because a lot of clients that I was introduced to Brad or through Brad, that's what I helped them solve. Like, I helped them look at their business, and it's like, well, what's your structure? What are your departments? And it's like, well, this is how it's built out. I'm like, well, you're built out for your capacity currently. Like, do you realize that you need to switch to expand your capacity? Like, if not, you'll continuously get bottlenecked here. There'll continuously be a friction, or you can't grow because of whatever reason. You know, so it's engineering that scalability. Like everything is about evolving. You as a human being, you're a baby at once. Like you're small. And then you evolve and you change and you have different hair and different styles and you're changing. So does your business.
Right.
And people try to run their business the way they were running it at the beginning and then try to scale that. And it's like, well, you can't scale chaos.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It needs to be organized. You need to consider having thousands of people in, you know, and explaining that to Caesar, because I remember sitting down and his old business partner, and I explained all that to them. I'm like, dude, the only way to scale is like this. And Caesar was like, well, yeah, dude. And his partner wasn't really on board. Like, nah, dude, we've been doing it like this. Forget it. And that was really also like a friction. I'm like, well, Caesar, I'd love to be here, bro, but I can't.
Right.
Like, this needs to be scalable.
Yeah.
You know, so when the opportunity came to partner up, and I knew he was bought into the scaling side, I'm like, he does want to go nationwide. Let's go. Let's do it. You know, so that was set up. And then plus, on top of that, there's also a factor of risk. There's very little people that will risk it all, that will risk a lot or even risk a little.
Right.
You know, and I'm a very like all in motherfucker.
Okay.
Like, you know?
Yeah.
So when we were doing these events, like we weren't even in the position to do it, you know? And I remember Caesar's asking me like, dude, we just like did the music video and like it's a shit ton of money. Like, do you still want to do this other event? I'm like, bro, yeah. Like we said we were going to do it. Let's do it. He's like, all right, well, I'm down, bro. Like, but you know, we're going to have to I'm like, bro, let's go. Like, we'll figure it out, bro. Believe me. Like, you think we can't really figure it out? Well, we can. Like, let's roll, dude. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, so we committed to it. And however the hell we figured out how to put it together, we did. So, like, even on my end, you know, looking for someone to partner with, but because before Caesar, it was kind of like just me. You know, anytime I try to talk really big picture, like, my ultimate goal is to discover and clean the rest of the ocean, you know, and use those same materials to build 3D printed homes, you know. But when you start talking fleets of submarines and the whole world, people get lost there. It's like,
right.
Like, I thought we were talking about selling solar, you know. And when I started talking to Caesar about all these things, I'm like, dude, I have my life planned out. Like, as long as I live, unless I live past 100, like, I know what that's going to look like,
nice.
You know? And he's like, dude, I'm trying to get fucking submarines too, bro. So I'm like, dude, let's go. Like, all right, perfect. And it just created such a great bond, such a partnership, because he feels like he's my brother.
Yeah.
You know, he feels like we were almost raised in a similar kind of household with similar traits and experiences. So it's weird. You know? Like, we relate in so many things. A lot of people think we are brothers.
Right.
You know, and it's just been such a great dynamic, and what we each bring to the table. Like I said, I never have to worry if like Caesar's working or Caesar's delivering on this. And I know it's the same way. Like anytime we get on a phone, it's like we're updating. Like, dude, I just did this. We have this move. Guess what? Now we have an event. When? Here. Like, it's like, yeah, well, we have another one. Oh shit. Okay, I guess we have that one too.
Right.
You know, so it's really understanding like how to take yourself from a mom and pop shop that's generating 6 figures to heading 7 figures to turnkey into 7 figures, shooting for 9 and 10 figures. Yeah. You know, because 0 to 1 million is a much smaller distance than 1 million to 1 billion. Right. You know, in retrospect, 1 million seconds is like a week and a half. Right. 1 billion seconds is 57 years.
Wow.
That difference.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just think people don't really think big enough, right? They don't, and then they haven't really thought through, like you said, the whole foundation and what is it going to take, right? I think once you start thinking bigger, then you start thinking, oh crap, like I don't have the systems, or I don't have the actual foundation, I don't have the right, and then it's like then you look for those solutions because you're thinking big enough. And most people just fail to do that. They're just like get comfortable or whatever it is, and then it's like they never scale past. Really, they just didn't have enough of a vision, which I think is what you basically bring to the table, is like that vision, and then it's like, all right, what are we gonna do to make that happen, right? And then how are we gonna collaborate, build relationships to actually get get there, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's an awesome quality to have, man.
And then in getting creative, I'll tell you a funny story. I don't know how we are on time, but when I was in high school, it's where I really learned how to operate the way I operate now, because I didn't want to do homework. I hated doing homework, bro. So I'm thinking like, okay, how do I set up a situation where I don't do homework and I can make it like a win-win situation? You know, so I came up with this plan. I'm like, okay, I was in third period in reading class and I had one of my friends there. And then my other friend had that same reading class, but fourth period. So I'm in third period and I tell my homie, I'm like, yo, bro, how about you do homework 1 week and I copy, and then I'll do homework the next week and let you copy. He's like, yeah, bro, for sure. You know, so then I went to my other friend and I made the same deal.
Oh, really?
So then I saved them both a week of homework. Like, they're happy. They're like, dude, I only have to do homework 2 weeks out of the month.
That's funny.
But then I get a copy of homework every single time, you know, but I connected it. I facilitated. So literally that's how I did my homework throughout high school.
Oh, wow.
Like I just went through it, and I was always pretty good with retaining information. So I did well in my tests. Like whatever the teacher was talking about, I was pretty good with retaining it.
Yeah.
So when the test came, I'm like, I know this. And then the homework got done. So I was clear, bro.
Dude, I love that, man. It's about, like you said, creating win-wins, right? It's about creating win-wins. It's like people, and it's like you ended up benefiting yourself, right? It's like you never did any homework. I love that, man. So I guess one last, we got a few minutes left, but, as far as that creativity, right? Because sometimes people might have a challenge with creating those kind of win-win relationships. So what's your thought process when it comes to those, creative collaborations?
Well, you can think of a 99% amount of reasons as to how you can screw someone over, right? And a lot of people go that route. And sometimes it's 1% chance that you can make it work. Sometimes it's a little more. Sometimes it's really at the border. The trick, and not with just creating win-win situations, but honestly anything in general, is asking the question how, and not deviating from that. Like, it's like solving a riddle. You read it and you read it and you read it and you're like, what am I missing here? And you go over and over and over until boom, something happens. Or you have to go find more information because the ideas you have right now just aren't clicking, and then something else, there we go. But you don't second guess. You don't deviate from win-win. You keep it there. Like, everything else can switch. I can do homework for 2 days, for example. Let's say I got to a point where I did have to do homework, but then it was almost like what I wanted, but it was a win-win. So, okay, win-win. Even though it wasn't exactly what I wanted, it's close enough. I still saved so many days of homework. So those relationships, and it comes with being authentic and being genuinely wanting to help the other person,
right? Because
your creativity level will be blinded if you're being selfish,
right?
If you're saying to yourself, I want to help them, but really you're like, nah, dude, I just want this. I don't care about them. It alters your decision making, and your brain is designed to solve problems,
right?
Like, if you asked a question, your brain is automatically going to start thinking. Like, if I say, Joel, what's your favorite color? It's going to think of colors automatically. It does it. That's the way it is. So if you start to learn how to ask yourself the right questions, your brain will start to look for the answers, and then you learn to do the same thing the other way. You're asking the right questions with people. They'll give you those answers, and just get really, really good with what questions you're asking yourself and other people.
Yeah, I think it goes back, like you said, that authenticity, right? Being authentic as far as, not really what's in it for me, but what's in it for them, and, just genuinely wanting to help them. And then, like you said, it made me even think of that Rubik's Cube, right? It's like not deviating from how am I going to get this resolved? Like, I'm not leaving until I get this resolved, and it's going to take simultaneous movement in order to get this to get, to get to the solution. Yeah. So I think that's the kind of mentality that it takes, man. I mean, it goes to show, I think, having you on the show, having Caesar on the show, obviously Brad, I've been on his podcast. I mean, just the collaboration between you guys three goes to show what you guys have done so far. I mean, the sky's the limit for you guys, which is awesome. So, I mean, for anyone that wants to be part of your team, they can hit you up on your IG, which I have it here. So they can hit you up under Legacy First Class. Yeah. Cool. So that's his Instagram handle. And what would you say for anybody that wants to, I mean, you're obviously creating dreams, you're creating, you know, this opportunity goes back to your childhood. So what would, you know, any final words to my listeners?
I would say to go after it. You know, half of the things that I've been able to accomplish, I wasn't in the position to take advantage of it yet. I wasn't in the position to buy a house when I started talking to realtors about how to do it. You know, start building those connections. Just go after it. Even if you're not in the position, go find out what it means and what it takes to get it. You know, and whatever it is, if you want a Lambo, talk to them. What's a payment look like? What do you have? What criteria do you need to hit? Like, that's so important, and it's changed my life so much to where I'm not limiting to my current circumstances. I'm going after what I want and identifying what I'm missing.
100%, man. I love that. Love that, man. I think it's super inspiring to have someone like you, you know, as a mentor, as a coach, if you want to get into solar, if you want to just collaborate, you know, you guys are building partnerships with a whole bunch of people. So just hit up Legacy. Legacy has been an honor. A pleasure having you on the show, man. Thanks for being on, bro.